Well, today we are making this wonderful round hello sign to go either on the front porch of the dollhouse or inside the dollhouse. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this project is. All right, what I have on my tray here are all the parts that are in the pattern for today's project. I'm going to call this a hello sign. When I started designing this, I was actually going to do a Valentine theme sign. And then I saw a couple of signs that just really drew my attention online. And this is kind of a compilation of a couple of different things I saw that were for sale for real life. And I thought this would be really cool. It can be any time of year. So it's a hello sign. So you'll get, again, there'll be a link to the pattern download in the blog post. Link to the blog post is always in the description box below the video. There'll be two different types of patterns. There'll be a PNG, which is what I used to cut this with my Cricut. There'll also be a PDF file that you can hand cut. Now, one thing I will say, if you're hand cutting, you probably won't be able to successfully cut the hello by hand. It's pretty intricate and pretty tiny, but you can paint the hello on the sign when we come to that step. So the other pieces are they're small, but they're pretty easy to do. So we have 3 of everything except the backing. And I find on these signs that don't have a lot of decoration on the front, it's best to do 4 layers. This is cut from just standard medium weight cardstock. Nothing super heavy, just the stuff that they sell at the craft store in the packages. Really inexpensive medium to use. I like to use all white so I can cut from 1 sheet of paper. Then I glue together and I paint it. That way the color for me seems to stay longer. If I use a colored paper, I tend to have a lot of fading issues where I generally, if I paint it with acrylic paints, I don't get the fading at least as much. So let's go ahead and glue the first couple together, and then I'll turn the camera off and I'll finish. So we're going to use a thick tacky glue and just spread a thin layer on. Now, I know some people use a glue stick when they do things like this. I have had trouble with glue sticks not staying stuck for me long term. A lot of times the glue seems to not hold very long. So I like to use a thick tacky glue. As long as you use a really thick glue and spread it really thin, I don't get a lot of warping. Although this one I am going to weight down with a bottle just because it is a larger piece. The secret is not much glue, a very thin layer, and a nice thick glue, because the thicker the glue, the less moisture in it. Moisture is your enemy when you are doing something like this. I like a liquid glue because I can move things around. All right, I do need more glue out. I did not put out enough today. But you'll notice I'm not using a whole lot of glue. And you'll want these to dry really well before we go to our next step. All right. And line them up as best you can. They should be all the same size. Now I'm going to use a bottle. That one will work. I'm just going to use a paint bottle. I'm going to set it over here off to the side. That way it will stay flat, because that is a pretty large surface. Let's work on this. This is going to be the most difficult one to glue together. It's going to be the hello. Just put some dots of glue over the surface. Now you might need to go in with something pointed, like I used a sewing pin, and poke out some of the little bits in the letters. I was going to film that part, but I ended up having camera problems and wasn't able to, that footage got ruined. All right, now pick this up. line it up one letter at a time. And if you get off, just pull them apart. And this will be easier when you're not trying to hold it where a camera can see it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. All right. And the second one for me is always a little easier to line up than the first one. I like to start at one end, get one letter done, then the next one, and then the next one, and just go on down, lining them up. If you need to, use a small tool like a pin, or excuse me, a pin or a dental pick or a dotting tool or something to help you line them up. I'm going to finish squishing this around off camera. I'm going to glue these other sets of 3 together, and once the glue is dried, I'll be back and we can start painting. All right, my glue is pretty much dry now, so I'm going to start painting. And I'm going to start with the hello, and I am going to paint it with white paint. The paper and the paint are a little bit different tone, but also by painting it, it kind of blends it together and makes it look less like it's a bunch of sheets of paper. So off camera, I'll finish this up. I'll just, because that one's going to take a while, so I probably shouldn't have started with that. Let's do the pink next. So these 3 pieces are the bow. And I do like to paint these before I put them together. The pink I'm using is just some Anita's in Vivid Pink. I've used this on a couple of different projects this year for this time of year. Be sure you get the edges. You don't have to do the back unless you want to on most of these. I am going to do the back on the big round one. So paint, get the edges. I'll come back and get any spots I've missed off camera. But those are pretty quick to do. All right, now, that out of the way, I will double check. Now I've got some black paint. This is also from Anita's. This one, I do want to do both sides because that will help to not have this warp. And be sure you get extra careful with the edges on this one because that paper is really going to show if you miss a spot. But this way, though, it does help those separate layers to not show nearly as much. It looks more like it was made from one piece of something thicker. All right, and I will come and flip those over a couple of times before they dry, just so they don't stick to my table. Off camera, I'm going to finish painting this hello in white. When these are completely dry, I'll come back and we will start assembly. All right, my paint is dried overnight, so now we're going to start assembling, and we're going to do this in a couple of stages. So we've got these 3 pink bow pieces, and of course you could do your bows in different colors. We're going to start with this one like this. We're going to put glue just on, I've got just some tacky glue off to the side. I'm going to put some glue on just that round part at the top. Then, now this will be easier if you can pick it up. I don't know if I can pick it up and keep it under camera though. And just line up. That oval roundish shape is the same on all three pieces. So if you can line those up, you'll have it all lined up. We're going to add, I need more glue on my tray. And it doesn't have to be perfect, you know, although I will probably adjust this off camera. Put glue in here. And again, line this one up with that. And you have a bow. So I'm going to put that off to the side. Now I'm going to attach the hello. And this is designed to sit kind of down this way. You're going to have to eyeball it, or you could measure it if you are so inclined. I did not line this up as well as I could have, but it'll be okay. I see that my O is really out of line. And I'm not doing a solid amount of glue. I'm just dotting glue on like the highest and lowest points and kind of some in the middle. On and put it in a spot that you like. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be higher, lower, whatever. Now, while this glue is drying and before we glue this on, I've got some green paint. And this happens to be leaf green from Ceramicoat. And I'm going to use, I think, that dotting tool. And I'm going to make some little vines because I want these to go up under my bow. I'm kind of tracing this one. I'm just kind of loosely tracing the edge. It's supposed to look like a garland. I love these round signs when they have flowers and leaves and stuff on the top, but in miniature it's hard to do that because it's hard to get flowers that are small enough to go on these really small signs. But it's pretty easy to paint them, and I'll show you that in a little bit. All right, so I like that. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Now that needs to dry, and when that's dry, we'll come back and we'll glue on the bow. So I'll be back in just a little bit. All right, both the paint and the glue are dry, so I'm going to kind of decide where I want to put this. I'm going to put it right about there, I think. So I've got a little bit of glue off to the side. And if we decide we need the green stems longer, we can always add that, but I like to have it coming from underneath the bow. And now I'm just going to let that glue set up for probably 5 or 10 minutes so this doesn't move around too much. Then I'll come back and we can start adding some little flowers. All right, the glue on that's holding our bow on has dried just enough that that won't be so prone to sliding around. And I've gathered up 4 colors of paint that I can use for flowers. I'm using the same white and pink that I've already used. Then I added a salmon pink and a light lavender because I think those will all be really pretty kind of flower colors. I'm going to start, I think, with the pink that the bow is because I don't want to highlight it as much. Kind of shake up the paint just to bring some up onto the lid. Now you could use any colors that you want. Use your favorite flower colors. You don't have to go with what I'm using. And I'm using dotting tools. If you don't have a set of dotting tools, you could use the end of a handle of a paintbrush. We've done that before on the channel. I'm going to make kind of small ones with this. And I'm going to just make... And I like to work in groups of 3 when I'm working with things like this. When I want it to look kind of random, I usually do 3. And then I'm going to let that set up for just a few minutes. Well, probably not even set up for a few seconds. I'm probably just going to go right into the next color. We'll add a couple of colors and then I'll let it dry and see how it looks. So let's get the white out. Okay. My white is almost empty. I need to get to the craft store. And I'm going to use a slightly bigger dotting tool for this one. Not that big. That's too big, I think. Let's just use a different one. And again, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. Oops. And you can overlap them. You can do them however you want. And because you're using such small amounts of paint, it's drying pretty quickly. And all you need to do is just wipe the dotting tool off. And even if you forget to wipe it off right away, once it's dry, it'll wipe right off. Now I'm going to use some salmon pink. Let's see, what size do I want for this one? I'll use this one. And just dot them around wherever you want them. And I'm going to add a few of the purple. Had to add purple since purple is my favorite color, and I don't use it very often on the channel. That's probably a little too big. Use the smaller end. They don't need to be attached to the green. So I'm going to let this dry. If I'm happy with it when it's dry, then I will come back and we will go ahead and put a clear finish on. If I'm not, I might tweak it, add a few more. We'll see how it goes. So I'll see you when this dries. All right, our paint is all dry and I have some satin Mod Podge off to the side here. That's in a small container. And I'm just going to put a nice even coat on the front of this. Once the front is dry, I am going to put a very light coat on the back because I find if I don't seal the back, it pulls the bottom layer of paper off when I take it off of my wall. I usually use that blue tack poster holding stuff, and it does tear off sometimes the back layer of paper. So try to put a thinner coat on than I'm doing right now. I kind of got carried away there on the amount I picked up, because the thinner the coat, the less apt it is to remain sticky when it dries. So I'm going to get this evened out. I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to do the back, and then I'll meet you over at the front porch of the dollhouse, and we'll see how this looks hanging up. All right, Mrs. Doll has her new sign placed on her front porch along with the Valentine stuff we made last year. I love how this sign turned out, and I think we're going to revisit this basic design maybe again. I really like how that little bow turned out. Maybe put some different wording or different designs around it. But I hope you enjoyed today's project too. Be sure and check the blog post so that you can download the free pattern. Remember, there's both a PDF and a PNG, so you can either hand cut or use your electronic cutting machine to make this project. If you make one of my projects, be sure and hop over to the Facebook group and show me a picture. I love to see what you're making, whether it's from my tutorials or not, but especially when it's from my tutorials. That really makes it feel like it's worth it to do this. If you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed, I encourage you, hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. Thank you very much for watching today, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.